The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by their respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 23rd day of February. Your readers today are Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
As always, we start with page 1 of USA Today, and our first article is titled Trump Unveils Global 15% Tariff. Move comes after 6-3 defeat at Supreme Court. President Donald Trump escalated his push to raise tariffs without the Supreme Court's backing on February 21st, announcing he would up the 10% worldwide tariff he announced after the nation's highest court ruled against him to 15%. Based on a thorough, detailed, and complete review of the ridiculous, poorly written, and extraordinarily anti-American decision on tariffs issued yesterday, after many months of contemplation by the U.S. Supreme Court, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post, the worldwide tariffs will be raised to 15% effective immediately. It came after Trump lashed out at the Supreme Court on February 20th for what he called its, quote, deeply disappointing, end quote, decision to overturn the emergency tariffs that he imposed on countries around the world. At a press conference after the ruling, Trump said he was ashamed of some Supreme Court justices for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I think their decision was terrible, he said. The court struck down the tariffs with a 6-3 majority that included 2 justices Trump appointed, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett. It marked the first time in Trump's second term that a conservative-dominated court has ruled against his sweeping use of presidential power. The case came to the Supreme Court after a group of small businesses, joined by more than a dozen states with Democratic attorneys general, sued Trump administration over the tariffs, accusing Trump of inappropriately stretching his power to regulate unlawfully imposed taxes. The president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in his opinion, but failed to identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it.
This next article is about President Trump. The bold headline says, Ambitious Trump RX doesn't always deliver. That's in bold print. And then in regular print, most probably can find lower prices elsewhere. So this is an article by Ken Alltucker, written for USA Today. For months, President Donald Trump and his aides touted efforts to lower prescription drug prices for Americans. Now, consumers can check prices at the newly launched website, TrumpRx.gov. This is a very big deal, Trump said February 5th, when announcing the launch. People are going to save a lot of money and be healthy. President Donald Trump, left in the picture on the screen here, and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Chief Mehmet Oz unveil TrumpRx governing February 5th at the White House. But analysts say the Trump administration's consumer drug pricing site might not deliver lower drug prices for most Americans. A key pillar of his administration's efforts to address health care and affordability, TrumpRx so far lists brand name fertility, insulin, weight loss, and other medications from 5 pharmaceutical companies. And while these drugs are discounted from their list prices, nearly half of the medications on the site have generic equivalents that can be purchased elsewhere, often at lower prices. The website does not note the distinction, stating only that consumers can, quote, find the world's lowest prices on prescription drugs, unquote. Of the 43 brand-name drugs on Trump Rx, 20 of them have generic versions that can be purchased at other pharmacies or direct-to-customer websites, said Sarah Carlin-Smith, a research director at Public Citizens Access to Medicines program. Public Citizen is a nonprofit consumer advocacy group. Carlin-Smith said she did the analysis to inform the public there might be cheaper alternatives at consumer sites. Bold print, a White House official said that although some generics might be cheaper, Trump Rx aims to offer the lowest prices for branded drugs, such as GoodRx and Cost Plus drugs. Quote, I wouldn't want a consumer who is unfamiliar with the broader pricing system to think getting one of these older brand name drugs is a good deal, Carlin-Smith said. For example, Trump Rx lists Pfizer's heartburn and reflux drug Prodnix for $200.10, a discount of more than 50% from the medication's list price. The generic version of the drug, however, can be paired with a coupon and purchased for $11.68 at Safeway or $15.61 at Walmart. This, according to GoodRx, a consumer prescription drug pricing app. Entrepreneur Mark Cuban said his company, Cost Plus Drugs, delivers lower prices on 90% of the medications listed on Trump's Rx. A major reason? Cost Plus Drugs carries generics. Quote, they added a bunch of brands that have generics, Cuban said in a social media post. So we beat them there, usually by a lot. Still, Cuban said, Trump Rx crushed it on fertility drug prices. Centrotide, an injectable medication used for in vitro fertilization, is listed for $22.50 on Trump Rx. A generic version of the drug is listed for $49.50 on Cost Plus, and more than $300 at chain pharmacies such as CVS and Walgreens. A White House official said that, although some generics might be cheaper, Trump Rx aims to offer the lowest prices for branded drugs. The website offers brand name medications from the first 5 pharmaceutical companies that negotiated most favored nation pricing agreements with the Trump administration. Another 11 companies later negotiated pricing deals, and products from those companies will be added to TrumpX. Consumers with a prescription can visit the site and browse among the products. The site does not process insurance claims and includes prices only for cash-paying customers. Consumers cannot directly order the drugs from the website. Indeed, there are instructions for each drug referring consumers to manufacturers' websites or coupons that can be used at local pharmacies. Trump Rx will likely, probably, to a narrow group of people, said Dr. Benjamin Rome, a Harvard Medical School professor. People without health insurance, or those who are underinsured with high deductible insurance plans, that is, that require they typically spend thousands before their coverage kicks in, are more likely to shop there, Rome said. Those with robust coverage probably will use their insurance to fill their prescriptions. It's not going to be particularly helpful for most people who use prescription drugs because most people purchase their drugs through their insurance. So, question is asked, what about weight loss drugs? Consumers have struggled to afford weight loss drugs such as Wegovy and Zepbound because of spotty health insurance coverage. Slightly more than half of large employers that provide health insurance to workers and their families do not cover GLP-1 drugs for obesity. A survey by benefits consultant Mercer found large employers are gradually adding coverage for weight loss medications. For example, in 2025, 49% of large employers covered GLP-1, namely medications, up from 44% in 2024 and 41% in 2023. So even consumers with insurance might not get coverage for these blockbuster medicines. TrumpRx lists discount prices for Novo Nordisk's Wegovy injectable version and weight loss pill, as well as Eli Lilly's Zepbound shot. But the TrumpRx prices for the popular weight loss drugs are identical to what Novo and Lilly charge cash-paying customers. For example, TrumpRx charges $299 for a 2.5 milligram single-dose vial of Zepbound. That is the same price Lilly charges customers who buy direct from the company. In going on, Novo Nordisk offers the same prices through TrumpRx, Novo's pharmacy retailers, and HellaHealth resellers. For new customers, Novo sells 25 milligram and 5 milligram versions of Wegovy and Ozempic for $199 for the first 2 months. The price rises to $349 for the third refill month. Lilly and Novo have been pressured by the Trump administration to lower the prices of their weight loss and diabetes medications. In an agreement announced November 6, Trump said Medicare would cover Novo's Wegovy and Lilly's Zepbound for millions of older Americans. Novo and Lilly agreed to the medical medications to Medicare at the average price of $245 per monthly dose. Medicare enrollees would be charged a monthly copy of $50 to get the weight loss drugs. Medicare expects to launch coverage of the medications in the spring-summer of 2026. And the next bold print, eliminating the middleman. Analysts say the launch of TrumpX underscores the growing role of direct-to-consumer drug sites. The pharmaceutical industry historically has relied on several intermediaries, from the drug factories to the consumer's medicine cabinet. Drug pricing middlemen, called pharmacy benefit managers, what do? They guide medication from the factory to retail pharmacy PBMs. In particular, they have been scrutinized for their role in drug pricing and influencing customers' access to medications through drug formularies, the list of prescription drugs consumers can get through a health insurance plan. Kelly Griffin, director of PwC's Health Policy and Intelligence Institute, said, consumer sites such as TrumpRx give customers more transparency on drug pricing. Quote, anytime you change the vantage point, particularly for consumers, you change the power, said Griffin, who added such information can have a ripple effect to other intermediaries in the pharmaceutical market. Let's see, the last paragraph is, because pharmaceutical companies can directly reach consumers. They don't have to rely on the traditional rebate and formulary engine, which had a lot of steps between pharmaceutical manufacturers and the consumers. In a social media post, Cuban said the efforts to bypass drug pricing middlemen is a big step forward. But, he said, more change is needed to lower drug prices and overall healthcare costs. Though those changes aren't imminent, Harvard's Rome said Trump RX gives consumers one of many price options. He cited as cost plus drugs, Good RX, and the retailers such as Costco, Walmart, and Amazon as places to go. And that's it for pricing.
Okay. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Our next article is an Olympic article. A golden finish for Americans in Milan. All smiles. Figure skater Alicia Liu, now an Olympic champion. Dateline Milan. Alicia Liu arrived in an Olympic figure skating venue Thursday night, February 19th, hopping up and down, more excited for her teammate Amber Glenn than herself. She watched Glenn's stellar long program on the shuttle bus over to the Milano ice skating arena, was cheering all the way. Now she wanted to do was find Glenn and give her a hug. Liu was an hour and a half away from skating her Olympic long program, what turned out to be the most important night of her life. Instead of worrying about that, she was thinking about someone else, a teammate and a dear friend. It should then come to no surprise at all when she was said and done, the most caring, carefree, selfless, happy, and optimistic skater in the women's competition who won the gold medal. Alicia Liu's story is absolutely remarkable and utterly unprecedented in figure skating history. She won her first national title at 13. She won her second national title at 14. She retired at 16. She unretired at 18. She won the World Championship at 19. And she just won the Olympic gold medal at age 20. I literally can't process this, Liu said, smiling as soon as she realized that neither of the two Japanese skaters who came after her had passed her in the standings. There's no way. Liu didn't just break the 20-year-old U.S. Olympic medal drought in women's figure skating, she obliterated it, skating with a freedom rarely seen at such an intense moment, especially in this year's nerve-wracking Olympic skating competition. Liu performed an exquisitely delightful, smooth, and error-free long program to Donna Summer's MacArthur Park, and then sat back and watched Japan's Kaori Sakamoto and Amy Nakati make just enough small mistakes for her to secure the first U.S. women's gold medal in figure skating since Sarah Hughes won in 2002. Olympic title in Salt Lake City. It was also the first medal of any color for a U.S. woman in figure skating since Sasha Cohen's silver in the 2006 Games. Liu was out Sakamoto, the three-time world champion and 2022 Olympic bronze medalist, 226.79 points to 244.90 points. The difference was Liu's athleticism, her jumps and spins and other elements that gave her just enough of a lead to offset Sakamoto's slight edge with the judges in artistry. Nakaya, the 17-year-old who led the competition after the short program, won the bronze medal with 219.16 points. Glenn, age 26, rose from 13th to 5th with 214.91 points. When Nakaya's score came up and Liu realized she won, she didn't do what champions often do and stand alone in triumph. No, she spent her time hugging Nakaya and Sakamoto before finally standing alone, just long enough for the cameras to put her on the big screen by herself and for the audience to roar in approval. Liu laughed and smiled in victory, and she laughed and smiled on her way to victory. It's doubtful any figure skaters ever smiled more during their 4-minute long performance in the pressure cooker of the Olympic Games. It was stunning to see, but she had her reasons. When I see other people smiling, I see them in the audience. I have to smile too, she said afterward. I have no poker face. Asked if she's ever nervous, she thought for a moment and said, these feelings I felt out there were calm, happy, and confident. All week, Lou had been saying she wasn't thinking of winning a medal in the women's event, didn't even need a medal, and wasn't focused on a medal. She stayed true to her word even as the gold medal was hanging around her neck. I don't need this medal, but what I need was the stage, and I got that. So all was good no matter what happened. If I fell on every jump, I'd still be wearing this dress, so it's all good. Ah, the dress. She had definitely focused on that prior to the competition, and why not? It was new, shimmering, and gold. I have a new dress that was very excited to share on the big stage, she said. Another unbelievable feeling hearing the cheers. I felt so connected with the audience, and I wanted to be out there again. Then Lou laughed and smiled and laughed some more. The happiest figure skater on earth was Olympic champion.
The weather around our area has been kind of up and down and difficult to take. Here's an article on winter storm snarls flights. The article by Eve Shen for USA Today. Snow from late January's catastrophic winter storm may finally be melting for many, but as a dangerous winter storm threatens the Northeast, with inches of fresh snow, airlines have already canceled thousands of flights. Some areas of the path of the storm are even under blizzard warnings, with conditions expected to make travel hazardous and cause some power outages. The heaviest snowfall and most severe storm impacts will be felt along the coast, where up to 20 inches could fall in some states. The Weather Service said that, and wind gusts from 40 to 70 miles per hour are expected from coastal New Jersey into southern New England. Quote, "This will be a dangerous and incredibly disruptive winter storm," said AccuWeather Director of Forecasting Operations Carl Erickson. More than 2,700 U.S. flights were canceled for February 22nd, and over 700 others were delayed by 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Here's how much snow you could see in your state. Briefly, New England. Blizzard conditions are especially likely in areas from New Jersey into southeastern New England. The Weather Service in Boston said that total snowfall accumulations could reach between 10 and 20 inches across eastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Massachusetts, areas in the western part of Massachusetts and into Connecticut have greater uncertainty in their snowfall totals. How about the city of Boston? See 8 to 12 inches, AccuWeather predicted. The Middle Atlantic. Major Middle Atlantic cities, including New York City and Philadelphia, are expected to get 6 to 10 inches of snow, this according to AccuWeather. The Weather Service office serving Philadelphia and Mount Holly, New Jersey, puts its estimate between 8 and 18 inches for New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. Parts of Delaware are also at risk for blizzard conditions and could see 12 to 18 inches of snow. The Washington, D.C. region could see 1 to 3 inches, while Baltimore could get 3 to 6, AccuWeather reported. If you're planning to fly, if you absolutely have to travel, be prepared to roll with the punches. More flights are likely to be delayed or canceled as the storm progresses. Research your booking options and alternative itineraries in advance, and take advantage of airline self-service tools to avoid long lines at airport agent desks or long hold times on the telephone.
This next article is titled, "Largest U.S. Infrastructure Project Can Resume After Trump Loses Lawsuit." Dateline, New York. Construction on the nation's largest infrastructure project can resume after a court ordered the Trump administration to release funding it had withheld to gain leverage over congressional Democrats from New York. On February 18th, New York Attorney General Letitia James announced the U.S. Department of Transportation released nearly $130 million in funding for the $16 billion Gateway Tunnel project in an ongoing lawsuit. The rail tunnel project under the Hudson River between New Jersey and New York is meant to bolster tunnels along the Northeast Corridor, the busiest passenger rail line in the United States. The funding resume is a blow to President Donald Trump, who vowed to terminate the project in a budget fight with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat from New York. This funding freeze was unlawful from the start, James, who herself has been targeted for legal retribution by Trump, said in a statement. We took swift action in court, and now every dollar that was illegally withheld has been released. The Manhattan-based U.S. Attorney's Office, representing federal officials in court, declined to comment. Neither the White House nor the U.S. Department of Transportation immediately responded to requests for comment. Construction had already started at several sites before federal officials abruptly pulled funding. Around $2 billion had already been spent on the project, New York officials said. The project would create 9 miles of new passenger rail tracks with a 2-tube tunnel and would fix the existing 116-year-old tunnels currently used by Amtrak and New Jersey Transit trains that were damaged during Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Just one tunnel failing could cost the nation's largest region economy billions of dollars annually, equivalent to over 30,000 jobs, according to the nonprofit Regional Plan Association. Trump, a former New York real estate mogul, was called himself the builder president, but has failed to pass an infrastructure investment bill, put the project to a halt in the fall during the federal government shutdown. On the first day of the shutdown, on October 1st, federal officials withheld grants to the Gateway project and the Second Avenue subway construction in Manhattan, citing New York City's disadvantaged business enterprise program, an equity initiative meant to expand participation in federally assisted contracts. And I'm cutting the project, Crunch told Fox News. This project is going to be dead, he said. It's pretty much dead right now. Trump had also reported he wanted New York's Penn Station and Virginia's Dulles International Airport renamed after him in order to drop his freeze on billions of federal dollars on the Gateway project. Trump later said his staff floated the idea, not him. In early February, the project stopped, affecting 1,000 workers because of lack of funding. On February 3rd, New York and New Jersey attorneys general sued the administration to release the funding. U.S. District Judge Jeanette Vargas then issued a temporary restraining order in Manhattan federal court and later required funds to be released with updates on payments of all present and future disbursements. The federal government owed about $230 million, according to James' office. On February 13th, officials released $30 million, followed by an additional $77 million, and released on February 17th, James' office said. The Gateway Development Commission, the joint corporation between New Jersey and New York overseeing the project, received the remaining funds, about $127 million, via wire the morning of February 18th. Tom Prendergast, CEO of the commission, said in a February 18th statement that contractors would be notified in the afternoon that work will resume next week. The project has more than $205 million available to fund work, he said. A day earlier, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, stood alongside union leaders and workers at a project worksite in New York City. She said Trump's put thousands of jobs at risk. This progress is significant, but we need certainty that the Gateway funding will remain in place for the duration of the project, Hochul said in a February 18th statement. The federal government has a legal obligation to fully fund Gateway, and New York will accept nothing less. The Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York, which represents workers on the project, didn't immediately respond for request for comment. And lastly, the Northeast Corridor serves about 800,000 passenger trips daily, Commission said. The section of the project between New Jersey and Manhattan is the busiest portion of the corridor.
I can't get to the next page. I'll just read this. Armed man shot, killed at Mar-a-Lago perimeter. An armed man was shot and killed by law enforcement agents early Sunday, February 22nd, after allegedly breaching a secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago. The man was seen by the north gate of President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago property in Palm Beach, Florida, at about 1:30 a.m., carrying what the Secret Service said in a news release appeared to be a shotgun and a fuel can. Authorities said two Secret Services and the Palm Beach County officer confronted the man and shot him. No agents were injured. Trump is at the White House according to his official schedule. In a news conference, the sheriff said the Security Council at Mar-a-Lago detected the man had entered the property's inner perimeter, leading a sheriff's deputy and two Secret Service agents to go to the area and investigate. Well, at least that section is covered.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes after the hour, which means we move to the money section of USA Today. And our first article is titled, Content Creators Face Tax Issues. Social media influencers often look like they lived a charmed life, but offline, they pay taxes just like the rest of us. Social media content creators, like everyone else with a more typical gig, must file their tax returns by April 15th with the IRS. And even if their lives look effortless on Instagram, you can almost bet their taxes will be more complicated. Being self-employed introduces complexity compared to reporting W-2 income as an employee, said Richard Pianoforte, managing director of tax at Fiduciary Trust International, who provide tax guidance to high net worth clients. Numerous tax deductions are available, and determining the value of products received is not always straightforward. Influencers work as independent contractors for the companies they promote. Independent contractors are considered self-employed. In addition to standard federal and state income taxes, self-employed individuals are also obligated to pay self-employment taxes, Pianoforte said. The net income from self-employment is subject to a 15.3 tax rate, comprising 12.4% for Social Security, 2.9% for Medicare. You also shouldn't have been making quarterly estimated tax payments on your income, since American taxes are pay-as-you-go, meaning you need to pay most of your tax during the year as you receive income, rather than one lump sum at the end of the year. Contrary to the notion of freebies, perks and often entail tax implications, Pianoforte warned. For example, sponsored posts. Compensation received from brands for creating content, whether in the form of videos, posts, or social media promotions, must be included as income. Brand partnership. If a brand sponsors your podcast or video channel, the payment received must be reported as income. Promotional items. Items received from a brand for review should be reported as income at their fair market value. Ads. Income generated from ads need to be accounted for as well. And barter. If you exchange your service for something other than money, what each person receives in the trade is considered income by the IRS and is taxable, said Hannah Cole, an IRS enrolled agent and author of Taxes for Humans. If a musician plays at a bar for Guinness, you need to report the Guinness. Get a receipt, she said. Some examples of deductible items are half the self-employment tax from the adjusted gross income, because that would be the half your employer would have paid had you worked for someone else. Certain purchases exclusively for content creation, depend on the content. For instance, beauty vloggers can deduct the cost of makeup and hair products used in videos, but only if they're used for content. The rule is that if it's only for that work and can be removed from your body, then it can be deducted, like a costume or safety gear, Bowles said. An influencer's hot new haircut isn't deductible, and neither are the khaki shorts and white polo you may have bought for a job because you can wear them on the street, she said. Home office deductions. Since many influencers work from home, their residence may be partially deductible in line with the rules for home office deductions. Influencers may deduct a portion of their cell phone, internet, and lighting bills, Cole said. So what tax form should content creators receive? You should receive a Form 1099 NEC from each partner paying you $600 or more. However, all income, regardless of the amount and whether you receive a 1099 NEC, must be reported on tax returns, including the value of products received, experts warned. If you earn income from YouTube, Instagram, or other platforms, including AdSense, you also receive a Form 1099 NEC for this income higher than $600. Online tax filing software platform TaxSlayer said on its website. Note: state tax obligations may be complex as an influencer too if you work for companies outside of your home state. Every state in which you earn income will require you to file a tax return and pay taxes on the income earned there. You'll also have to report that income to your state home state return, but your home state usually allows you to take a tax credit for taxes paid to another state on the same income. Well, how many social media creators are there? Well, there are 27 million paid content creators in the United States, according to a 2023 report by Keller Advisory Group, a special social media and marketing research group. Of these, 44%, or nearly 12 million, are said to work as full-time creators. This means annual income for creators about $93,000, but more than half earned less than $10,000 annually. And lastly, it said 6% of Americans aged 16 to 54 are full-time creators or influencers, earning $179,000 annually on average.
Yeah. Largest U.S. infrastructure project can resume after Trump loses his lawsuit. Construction on the nation's largest infrastructure project.
I read that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, let me pull up another one here. We're having some computer problems, as you can imagine here.
Yes.
Next article. Next article is titled "Down But Hurting." Inflation ticked down 2.4%. The unemployment rate fell, and U.S. employers added 130,000 jobs in January, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as reports economists view as the gold standard of data. On paper, the economy appears to be stabilizing, but many Americans say they're struggling to afford groceries, and even higher income earners feel they're in a survival mode. Workers are clinging to their jobs, fearing they can't afford to lose them. The Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index fell to its lowest level to 2014 in January. Chief economist for Comerica Bank, Bill Adams, said the disconnect between what people say about the company and what the hard numbers show widened following the COVID-19 pandemic, then narrowed a bit and is still not back to normal. This kind of post-pandemic puzzle has been with us for a while. Looks like it's not resolving overnight, Adams said. It tends to be a slow, painful process for economies to get back to normal after affecting those really large shocks. Economists point to a mix of factors. Prices remain significantly higher than they were before the pandemic. Wage gains have not fully offset cumulative cost increases for many households, and the labor market's no longer booming. Elements Americans have noticed. Some critics have questioned whether government's numbers can be trusted after President Donald Trump's decision to fire the BLS's commissioner in August, raised concerns about the agency's independency and credibility. Months later, however, there's no public evidence that data has been manipulated, and Mark Hamrick, bank rate senior economic analyst, said any tampering would likely be detected by private forecasters and civilian employees. Nationwide economic indicators are estimates based on sample surveys, not a full census of every household and employer. The BLS revises its figures when more complete data become available. While monthly estimates can be off and lower survey response rates may affect reports, economists say the broader trend lines are generally reliable, particularly when viewed in the context of other data. I understand and certainly have been questioned, if not criticized, for leaning in on the macroeconomic data over the years when individuals don't feel like it aligns perfectly with their view, Hamrick said. It's also a fact that macro data is macro. It can be sunny in my neighborhood, it might be raining in someone else's. The reality of those two experiences are not in conflict. Inflation is running at 2.4% near the Federal Reserve's 2% target, and price growth has slowed from last year. But slower inflation does not mean lower prices. It means prices are rising at a slower pace than they were before. In June 2022, inflation peaked at 9.1%, the highest in 4 decades after rising sharply late the prior year. Stayed elevated through 2023 and into early 2023. Since the start of 2021, consumer prices have risen 22.7%, while wages have grown 21.5%. Not everyone has received a raise. Wage growth for lower paid workers has slowed more than for high earners, according to data from the Atlanta Fed. Nobody's talking about ever going back to the prices we had that kind of been more accustomed to prior to that inflationary surge, Wayne Weingartner, senior fellow in economics at Pacific Research Institute, said. We've lost ground and we need our incomes to accelerate to kind of catch back up. With housing costs many Americans' largest regular expense, it's a pain point not to fully reflect on the BSL's Consumer Price Index. When the index tracks rent costs, it does not directly capture the mortgage payments or the difficulty many Americans have attempting to save for a down payment. Housing is one of the ways that the families, especially lower to middle income households, save and create wealth. Oxford economics lead economist Bernard Yarrow said, adding that when housing is unaffordable, it just weighs on people and makes people upset. And I think that's something that's difficult to capture. It's also a psychological factor. While some prices, including those for eggs and gasoline, have come down, Adams said consumers tend to focus on what costs go up. While monthly job figures sometimes beat expectations, as they did in January, they're still estimates and revisions are routine. The BLS's revision, released alongside the January jobs report, showed the agency revised its estimated job growth in 2025 down from 584,000 to 181,000, making a meaningful slowdown last year. Economists described the labor market as low hire, low fire environment. Several factors contribute to employers' caution, including ongoing tariffs, uncertainty, and adaptation of artificial intelligence reshaping hiring plans. Americans' experience of the job market varies depending on who they are and what they do. Much of the recent job growth has been concentrated in healthcare and social assistance. Workers outside those industries may face a more difficult search. Being appropriate for someone to look at what's a historically low unemployment rate of mostly 4.3%, and to say that's perfectly parallel to the living experience of each and every worker in the United States. This is a number which, measuring the entire United States workforce, is many millions of people. Weingarten added that he understands individuals know their own economic situation can sometimes vary from trend lines in the national figures. Your individual economy is valid, and if you're having a hard time getting a job, then the job market is tough. Weingarten said.
Have you historians wondered about a ship that disappeared in 1872? This article says the Lac La Belle, lost in Lake Michigan in 1872, is found. So this is an article by Joel Petrus and Stephen Beard. Nearly 150 years to the day after it was lost, shipwrecked divers discovered the remains of the Lac La Belle, a passenger steamer that sank in a storm in Lake Michigan on October 14, 1872. Shipwreck hunter Paul Aaron found the 217-foot longship, one of the most popular of its time, in October of 2022, about 20 miles offshore between Racine and Kenosha, Wisconsin. He has been looking for the ship for 60 years. Airhorn delayed announcing his discovery until three-dimensional video images of the wreck could be produced. Bad weather hampered production. The Lac La Belle is sitting upright on a lake floor. Its upper cabins are gone, and it's covered with mussels, but the hull is described as intact. The depth of the site has not been disclosed. The discovery was announced in Shipwreck WorldCom by Brendan Balliad, president of the Wisconsin Underwater Archaeological Association. Why did the La Belle sink? The Lac La Belle was a wooden-hulled, propeller-driven steamship built as a passenger vessel in 1864 in Cleveland. It spent its early years running from Cleveland to Lake Superior. The ship went aground at Eagle River on Lake Superior in June of 1864 and had to be refloated. It collided with the Milwaukee, a sidewheel steamer at the St. Clair Flats at Lake City Clair in Michigan in November 1866 and had to be raised and repaired. It was converted into a bulk freighter in 1869. The Lac La Belle, with 53 passengers and crew and a load of barley, flour, pork, and whiskey, left Milwaukee for Grand Haven, Michigan about 9 p.m. on October 13, 1872, and it began leaking north of Racine a few hours later. A gale developed and heavy waves extinguished the ship's boilers, knocking out propulsion. Passengers and crew boarded lifeboats and saw the ship sink stern first about 5 in the morning. 8 people died when one of the lifeboats capsized. The others were able to reach Racine. Ahorn, 80 years old of Elgin, Illinois, has been diving for shipwrecks since he was 15 years old and had been looking for the Lac La Belle since 1965. He has discovered several Great Lakes wrecks, including the SS Senator in 2005. A love of old women's steamers drew Ahorn to the Lac La Belle, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported. Ahorn and maritime historian and shipwreck hunter Bruce Bitter were able to narrow down the Lac La Belle's location. They used sonar to find it. Want to learn more? Ahorn will talk about the Lac La Belle and present images of the wreck at the 2026 Ghost Ships Festival in Manitowoc, Wisconsin on March 7th. If you're interested, show up.
This article is titled, New Workplace Benefits Add First-Time Home Buyers. Some employers are helping out employees. Brian Morales and his partner always knew they'd be homeowners someday, but it seemed far on the horizon until they got some unexpected help. The company Morales works as an engineer announced a new employee benefit offering assistance with both the financing and planning needed to buy a home. Morales jumped on the chance, and now he and his family are the proud owners of a triplex, living in one unit and renting the other two out for income that offsets the cost of the mortgage. It's kind of hard to turn a benefit like this down, Morales told USA Today. I don't think I would have been able to do this on my own. I wanted to have a home for my family, to be okay, and to be settling them up for a better financial future. The benefit Morales used comes from a company called Oro, O-R-O, which was founded by George Fothery, a partner of Kalisha Mayes. Fothery spent more years as a big law real estate attorney, but had an epiphany when he took on what he calls a passion project, helping a black family whose oceanfront property had been seized by the city where it was located more than a century ago. Thanks to Fothery's legal work, the land was returned to the family. First time in American history a government had to return property to a black family, he said. Fothery called the experience a front row seat to what happens when people and families and communities are denied the opportunity to own homes, to own property, to own land, or to create intergenerational wealth. That insight led him to co-found Oro in an effort to close the wealth gap by enabling homeownership access through a workplace benefit. The housing market's high cost and barriers to entry are a pain point for employers as well as workers. The daunting cost of living may make it hard to attract a retail staff. It also may mean that some workers are commuting extremely long distances. They're spending copious amounts of time trying on their own to become homeowners, meaning they're less productive on the job. We hear frustration from employers, said Julie Duran Stewart, who manages fiduciary advisory services for Sentinel Group, a nationwide benefits consultancy. This is just something that everybody's contending with, and eventually does impact the business side of things as well. Oro allows employers to offer anything from financial assistance, such as down payment funds, helping convert private mortgage insurance, or buying down interest rates, to counseling and preparedness for the process of becoming a homeowner. The benefits can be tailored to any particular company, can be set up with whatever stipulations an employer wants to make, sure that his employees stay with the company after taking advantage of the Oro benefit. One way to help democratize homeownership by making the benefit open only to first-time buyers, who are more likely to be younger and less wealthy, Fothery noted. He and industry experts who spoke with USA Today acknowledged that these types of offerings aren't new. Employers long have offered housing assistance, particularly to higher status workers or those who are being enticed to relocate to expensive areas. What Oro does differently is make home ownership a standard part of the financial package that most workers are now accustomed to receiving from employers, including retirement planning, health and transportation savings, insurance, among other things. I'm a big fan of any kind of nudge, whether it's a wellness platform or working with an advisor or doing it yourself, of anything that encourages people to get more in touch with their goals and what they're saving for, said A.J. Ayers, an equity compensation specialist and co-founder of financial planning company Brooklyn FI. The idea of a platform that's provided by your employer that helps you save money and helps you establish credit, I see as a win, he said. There are good reasons to have a third party like Oro offer housing benefits, Stewart said. The plumbing is a little bit complicated, and from a privacy perspective, you're now getting into people's debt and other things that may be the HR team doesn't think should enter into the purview of an organization to be responsible for. Kelly Sen, Senior Vice President of Financial Wellness Services at a consultancy, Francis LLC, also applauded Oro's approach. They're capturing as one of the major frustrations for young adults today, Sen said. They're trying to pay off their student loans. They're trying to live. Not enough money to do that and save for a house. But Sen also noted that some employers choose to offer similar assistance through financial planner benefits, which might take a more holistic view of the employee's overall financial life. She also wonders if there would be enough support for employees who might see the benefit of what Oro offers but feel uncertain about getting started. Company's still young, and Featherfree told USA Today It's learning as it goes. Decision to offer home ownership counseling services, for example, was spurred after a program that offered down payment assistance had no takers. To me, employee-sponsored housing support is an equalizer and helps level the playing field, Feathery said. It also makes sense because it's aligning the interest of the employee and the employer.
And some good news briefly, and it's about rescuers recover the body of the 9th missing skier at Lake Tahoe, which was one of the deadliest in decades. The bodies of all nine missing skiers have been recovered after they were caught in an avalanche in California's Sierra Nevada. During the news conference, Lieutenant Dana Hack with the Sheriff's Office said California Highway Patrol and the California National Guard assisted on February 21st in recovering the 9th and final skier whose body was recovered at 10:58 a.m.
I guess that was a real project because the conditions are so dangerous there for the rescuers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, that article you read on the shipwreck, I just finished a serialized book for radio reading. It'll probably be aired next month.
Yeah.
It's called Gales of November. It's about the Edmund Fitzgerald shipwreck. It's kind of interesting. You may enjoy it.
Yep. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for the date today, the 23rd of the month. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
And those of you hockey enthusiasts who've been watching the Olympics for the last couple of weeks, the U.S. men defend Canada in hockey. Color them red, white, and golden. 2 weeks after they arrived at the 2026 Milan Cortina Winter Games, determined to embrace the experience, the USA men's hockey team had the most fun of all, bringing home a gold medal for the first time since the Miracle on Ice squad in 1980. Best of all, the Americans can say they did so by having to go through Canada to get to the podium's highest position. The USA defeated Canada 2-1 in overtime on a goal by Jack Hughes. Equipment littered the ice February 22nd at Milano Sant'Agata Ice Hockey Arena, and the Americans leaped over the bench to mob their teammates. The men won 3 days after the USA women defeated Canada in that hockey tournament. The game on February 22nd marked the third time the countries met for the men's gold medal since the NHL has been sending its players to the Olympics. Canada has won in 2002 and 2010. This year's match came 46 days since the USA upset the mighty Soviet Union in a semifinal at the 1980 Lake Placid Olympics. That USA team was composed mostly of amateurs. The teams that met in the final game in 2026 were stacked with stars, 25 NHLers deep on each side. The Canadians took a 27-16 edge in shots into the third period. Connor Hollybike made a huge save on Devin Tews, who was at the crease when he fired a shot that rolled off Hollybuk's stick. Hollybuk had to come up big minutes later when Macklin Celebrini had a breakaway. Nathan McKinnon had a shot from just outside the crease to the left of the puck off the netting as Canada ran up a 10-2 edge in shots. Since 2010, since the start of the second period, mid part of the third. And there was a high sticking that gave the Americans an advantage. The USA had a strong start, buzzing around Canada's zone, but initially couldn't get a shot at the goalie. The crowd was into every shift, with the majority Canadian fans cheering when Tom Wilson delivered a big hit on Dylan Larkin behind the USA's net. USA cheers ran out when Matt Beaudry shredded Canada's top defensive pair of Cale Makar and Devin Tews, flipped the puck to himself, and scored at the 6-minute mark on what was America's first shot on the net. They won.
This next article is on college sports. Realignment, rewind. Newsflash: old conference musings. Shrink SEC and restore Big East. So what's this all about? A man can fit a lot of reminiscing and hard-to-believe tales within a nearly 700-page memoir. Considering this humdinger from former Nebraska athletic director Bill Moos, he said once considering pulling the Huskers out of the Big Ten and reversing them into the Big 12. Moos, in his new memoir, Crab Creek Chronicles, writes of how he deployed a stealth approach to hatch a scheme centered on getting Nebraska back into the conference it willingly left in favor of the Big Ten, 10 riches, and stability. Moos wrote that the Big 12, Commissioner Big Bawlowski, was extremely positive about the possibility of Nebraska making a Big 12 comeback. Of course, Moos never achieved the reverse realignment maneuver. Those who can't do, those who can't write a memoir about what they thought about doing, or something like that. Nebraska remains entrenched in Big Ten football mediocrity as long as the check clears, right? In terms of pure fit, though, Moses is right. And he wrote Nebraska just fits better with the schools of the Big Eight. And that got me thinking, if we put aside dollars and cents, make decisions based on fit rather than television deals, which realignment moves which we rewind. Here are 4 no-brainers I have in mind. And moving 3 schools back into the Big 12. Texas created havoc for the Big 12 for many years, and the Longhorns suit the SEC anyway, so leave them be. Same with Texas A&M. Those schools should be paired together, and they fit the SEC's tapestry. This would leave the SEC with top let me just figure this out here, 14 members, that's plenty. But to Moo's point, the old Big 8 schools belong together in a conference oriented around the U.S. heartland. So I mean Nebraska, Missouri, and Oklahoma back into the Big 12. That'll restore annual rivalries like Oklahoma, Nebraska, Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and of course Bedlam. To help clear some room in the Big 12 conference for these 3 former members, I'm shifting out of Central Florida, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. Those are not heartland schools. Anyway, I got a better fit in mind for WVU in Cincinnati. Most realignment moves are designed with football and money in mind, but there's no conference I miss more than the Big East that made Big Monday college basketball appointment viewing. While some old-timers mostly adoringly remember the Big East for its 9-member era of Patrick Ewing, Ed DePickney, Chris Mullen in the 1980s, I have a fondness for the bigger iteration of the Big East in the 2000s and early 2010s. I'm shuttling West Virginia and Cincinnati back into the Big East. I'm also moving Boston College, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Pitt, and Louisville out of the ACC and into their rightful home, the Big East. How's it going for those 5 schools in the ACC? The Big East looks better all the time. As part of my Big East reassembly, it's back to the Big East for Rutgers, too. What is a school in Piscatawny, New Jersey doing in the Big Ten? Those 8 schools I plucked from the Big 12, ACC, and Big Ten conferences would join UConn, Georgetown, Providence, St. John's, Seton Hall, Villanova, DePaul, and Marquette in a 16-team Big East built on basketball. I don't mind Oregon's fit in the Big Ten. Oregon football has proved itself ready for Super 2 conference status. But here's the deal. Big Ten, you want the Ducks? You got to take Oregon State too. As for the rest of the left coast schools, return to where you belong in the Pacific Base Conference. That means you, Southern Cal and UCLA. Say goodbye to those Big Ten road trips to Penn State. Nobody but diehard fans remember that Cal and Stanford are in the ACC anyway. It's back to the pack for them too. Washington is coming back to join Washington State in the 4 California schools. If we just off the Big 6 nickname, or go find 2 or 4 more schools. Something called Sacramento State wants to play in the Football Bowl subdivision to beef it up. Anyway, if you got the Washington schools and the California quartet, you got the start of a Pacific Conference. I've rated the ACC, shuttling 5 schools back to the Big East and 2 more to the Pac whatever. Now we come with a gift for the ACC. Maryland, the Big Ten, not your friend. Make nice with the ACC. Just as Moose apparently tried to do for Nebraska with the Big 12.
The next article highlights some people who did some great things in the Olympics. It's an article by Chris Bumbaka. G-U, golden. But what does she want now? Livigno, Italy. As Milan Cortina 2026 organizers whisked away Eileen Guitt, had been more than an hour since the medal ceremony of the women's free ski halfpipe ended. Such are the media obligations of an international superstar, Gu Golden. I snuck in a question regarding the now most decorated Olympic free skater of all times. Is there anything you want that you don't have? Gu laughed in her patented way, and I assured her that I realized the existentialism behind my inquiry. Quote, I want to be better, she said. I feel like you can always improve. I want to be more patient. I think that, yeah, maybe I'm impatient person. Being more patient with people, always being curious. There's so many things for me to learn from every single person. The stance she's always taken, she added, is to be a student of the world. That's the enigma of Gu in a nutshell. She's genuine, unapologetically herself, and equally rehearsed. She is frighteningly intelligent, but isn't above pleading ignorance. Gu's second run, February 22nd, the competition postponed to the final day of the games due to snow the night prior, clearly pleased the judges, who rewarded Gu with a 94.00 that improved in her third run at the 94.75. Gu took silver in the big air and slope-style competitions, and she was the lone woman to compete in all three events, something she did 4 years ago at the Beijing Winter Olympics, where she made history by winning 2 gold levels. China's Eileen Gu, who lives in the USA, won the women's skiing half pipe on February 22nd at Livingio Snow Park. At just 22 years old, and Gu holding 6 Olympic medals and 6 Olympic starts, her career on the snow is already solidified as the best to ever do it. Quote, that's really special to me, said Gu, who added, I never thought that I would be the one who would get to hold this record. It was never her goal, but she did put 100% of herself into the sport and reaped the results. Gu described herself as one in, last out. She's quick to point out that she's the most decorated free skier and has the most golds. Talk the talk, walk the walk, she does. It's like bearing your soul. It's very honest, she said of skiing. After the last Olympic, Gu spent 9 months away from the sport. She has no designs on stopping this time. After Milan Fashion Week, she'll compete in Switzerland as part of Shaun White's Snow League. Going back to Stanford, where she'll be a junior, is absolutely in the cards. Her body rests with an active mind. In skiing, she reaches flow state, and her mind is at ease. Fashion feeds her soul by being expressive. There's a hat fetish going on. She wants the hatters to take their energy and improve their situations. That's what she's doing as a biracial young woman. I erred. It's not hatters, haters. So she's black, and a lot of people apparently are jealous of her. This is the way I can inspire the most good on a global scale, said Gu, who won silver in her other 2 competitions at the Games. She now has 3 golds, 3 silvers. She has been on the other side of a lot of creative insults, she said, which gives her hope for a more creative world. She says a lot without saying anything. She plays the media like a fiddle. Even Derek Jeter would be envious. Gu hits talking points like a politician. A debate between her and Vice President J.D. Vance, maybe? Now that would be a must-see on television, says the author here. Any possibility of a career in American politics went out the window the minute she signed up to compete under the 5-star red flag. She's loved in China, but isn't without her detractors. There are sports purists in the States who certainly appreciate her talent, but she has no true fan base in America for obvious reasons. Who knows which outside forces influenced that decision? She was a teenager. Her mother, Jan, the central figure in her life, is a single mom who raised her. But Gu is an adult now and intends to major in international relations, and yet shares no opinion on U.S.-China trade details or the inhumane treatment of minority populations in either places she calls home. Gu refuses to answer her citizenship questions. By competing for China, she'd have to renounce her American passport, unless the Chinese government made an exception, of course. Gu told Time magazine's Sean Gregory last year, "The question isn't relevant. I can't think of a more relevant one when it comes to international competition. Through the prism of a business decision, she likely made the right one, but we'll never know how big Gu's star could have been in the U.S. There's no denying her skill on skis. Gu hadn't done a big air event since winning it 4 years ago. But this is what really matters in her mind. She believes she's doing the best she can to make the world a better place. Gu has the money, the medals, the fame. She can walk a runway Tuesday, give a corporate pep talk on Wednesday, go to classes Thursday, and ski anywhere in the world she wants to on Friday. So what does somebody who seemingly has everything she can want? I guess we'll also have to work on our patience to find out. Go Gu.
Here's another Olympic article. USA's Alex Ferreira wins elusive gold. Dateline Livigno, Italy. Alex Ferreira stood at the top of a half-pipe and repeated the incantation he'd come to rely on. I am greatness. This is my moment, and I can feel it in my bone marrow. 5 tremendous jumps above the 22-foot walls later, Ferreira had achieved greatness. Indeed, it was his moment. And now, down on his bone marrow, he's an Olympic gold medalist. Ferreira, age 31, won the women's free ski half-pipe competition with an electrifying third run to add to his medal total, which included a silver in the 2018 and bronze in the 2021 Olympics. All that was missing was gold, and he entered the 2026 Winter Games determined to complete the set, he said. In October, he told USA Today Sports he kept his medals above his bed to remind himself that hard work enables success. Gold will be quite the addition to the collection. It's way different, he said. There's nothing like gold. It's 100 times better than I ever thought it would be. The most beautiful moment I've ever experienced in my life. I'm so insanely grateful. Goes to show Ferrari said you never stop believing in yourself. Her sister, Lourdes, said his performance was a thank you to those who supported him throughout his career. And just go for it, said Lourdes, who was 8 years Alex's junior. This is what he was here for, to say it very kindly. Because of the clarity of her brothers possessed during entering the competition, which had the quirk of qualifying in the morning and finals at night, because of bad weather affecting the schedule, was the least nervous he's ever been before an Olympic final. That's good for her, says, because prior to that moment it was the worst day of his life. He woke with a pounding headache and took Tylenol. You never know what the end of a day can bring, he said. Ferrer wasn't pleased that the qualifying and final rounds were in the same day. There was going to be competition no matter what, so he might as well leave it all out there. It's indescribable because we've been working very hard for the last 3 Olympics, said a hoarse and breathless Marcelo Ferrari, Alex's father and a former professional soccer player from Argentina. So now he has the full cycle. Like many of the twin skiers during the first run of final trials, Ferreira struggled. He ended the round in third, but with a low score. Ferreira showed why he was the favorite coming into the contest with a 90.50 on the second run. Estonia's Henri Sedero drew a 92 .75 after that to push him down to second heading into the final run. Ferrera steeled himself, then dropped in. He went switch right double cork 180. Japan pretty big, he said. Left-sided double cork 1620 safety. Right-sided double chuck. You getting all this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 1080 Japan switched left side Japan and finished with a right side double 1620 safely. Didn't sound very hard. He knows it was the run he'd spent his entire life building toward and celebrated with a patented polo lasso move. The score came in at 93.5. The contingent Ferrari supporters in the first row at Flamingo Snow Park combusted. Screams, tears, hugs. Ferrari's even more interesting outside of skiing. Beautiful person, she said. He's smart, he's kind, he's funny. Most of all, he's driven, said his girlfriend, Deidre Hegarty. And he did it really beautifully today. The living nightmare of waiting began with 3 competitors to go. Oh, I hated every second of it, he said. Ferrari could hardly watch and bit his knuckle as Sidereau final score was posted, 93 flat. Earlier, his friend and teammate Nick Gepper, at the time in third, suffered a brutal crash on his final jump of a run that might have secured a medal in his Olympic halfpipe debut. Canada's Brendan McCaig, the final competitor and top qualifier, had a tremendous final run, ultimately finished with a bronze medal. Ferrera thought the gold dream was dead, but the judges didn't agree. When McKay's score went up on the board 91, the celebration for Ferrera clan was officially on. Other podiums he's earned through his career, the X Games wins, and other accolades are validating, but the Olympic gold medal solidifies a career, Ferrera said. I don't just say that about myself, he said before rattling off a list of other greats, such as David Wise, won the first 2 half-pipe free ski golds in 14 and 18. Just, I guess, the extra last little tick, he added. Both arms raised, Ferrera took that lunge into the top step of the podium with pride. Took fellow medalists' hands, threw them up in the air again, then put his hands on his head in disbelief. He hugged the International Olympic Committee person who gave him the gold he desperately desired. His group of friends started singing the Star Spangled Banner halfway through the instrument playing. About 3 years ago, Ferrera completely rededicated himself to training and cut out the partying. Just sheer hard work and consistency, Ferrera said, is absolutely going for it every single day. Our sport's really scary and you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. For a long time, people didn't consider Ferrera a champion. He felt overlooked. He made it personal. Nobody treated him like a professional, so he started treating himself that way. The respect followed. Now I'm an Olympic gold medalist, said the kid who grew up in Aspen, Colorado, and would sneak out of school with friends to watch the world's best freestyle skiers practice. Ferrera won all 7 of his competitions that season, 23 and 24. His mom, not meaning it nefariously, said something along the lines of how convenient it'd be if the Olympics were that year. I was thinking I definitely peaked too early, Ferrera said. He also felt the pressure from Marcelo, who basically, he says all the time, you have to win the gold medal. This is the most beautiful closing of a career, Marcelo said, of a real champion. Ferrera doesn't know if it actually is it, though. He wouldn't commit one way or another if this was the end of the line. It's going to be hard not to compete with these guys, he said, gesturing to the medalists on either side of the dais. It's been my life for the past 20 years, so I'd like to. Ferrera admitted suffering from post-Olympic blues, but it says life up differently. He's in control of himself now, and he says he thinks it will be the best time of his life.
And basketball fans, do not despair. The Olympics are over, but March Madness is almost upon us. Washington, Duke men's basketball and Coach John Shire got exactly what it wanted against Michigan, a March Madness test in February. The number 3 Blue Devils, who were 25 wins and 2 losses, took down number 1 ranked Michigan in the Big Ten. It was at a venue that could host Duke again for the men's NCAA tournament, East Regional, where Duke is projected to be a #1 seed. That was a game that didn't feel like it was played in February. That felt like a March or April game, Shire said. It was the highest attended college basketball site game with 20,537 fans in attendance. Cameron Boozer posted a team-high 18 points, 18 rebounds, and 7 assists. Shire went to the game knowing it would be a great test for his team. While he said he did not necessarily learn anything new from his squad, he instead saw growth. I see the connectivity on defense, he said. I see the plays they're making on offense, of how to win in March and how to win going forward, and that's the biggest thing I saw. I think there's a lot that could have been done better, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't diminish how proud I am of our team. I think we still can get a lot better, but I think we've done that, and I think it was just the next step in order for us to prove it. For junior guard Caleb Foster, who finished with 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, the atmosphere reflected that one of come on March Madness. It definitely felt like a tournament game, obviously going against Michigan, and then having a neutral site in the environment. Both Michigan and Duke fans, Foster said. It was a great environment to play in. And the last paragraph of this particular article said, while the coach emphasized staying in the present, he didn't shy away from recognizing how much the environment could matter later. I do know this game helped us understand what a tournament environment is really about. I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for the whole event, the game, because I think it really stimulates what it's going to be and whether we have an opportunity to play in Washington or not. This helped us a lot. So, goodbye, Olympics. Hello, March Madness.
Here's our last sports article, and it's another Olympic article, but non-USA. Skier smashes record for most goals in one winter. Dateline Milan. Eric Heiden's record for most gold medals won at a single Winter Olympics has fallen. It's a record that stood for 46 years, the American speed skater having won 5 golds at the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. Johannes Hostolf Kabo, the men's cross-country skier from Norway, won his 6th medal of the 2026 Milan Cortina Games with a victory in the men's 500-kilometer race on February 21st. In the final lap, he overtook teammate Martin Lundstrom in Nijmegen and collapsed after he crossed the finish line at a time of 20:07:07, 17.5 seconds ahead of Nijmegen. It was Norway medal sweep with Nijmegen winning the silver and Emil Everson taking bronze. Galebo, age 29, prevailed here in all 6 men's ski races, the 10K interval start, the 4x7.5K relay, skiathlon, sprint and team sprint, and 50K mass start. Increases Olympic record total to 13, including 11 golds he won the Winter Games in 2018, 22, and 26. Heiden, by contrast, competed only at the 1980 Games. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 1:29.
And we move into the life section. Movies. Imagine 2. So Imagine 2 in parentheses. Helps Ventimiglia rebuild. Who is Ventimiglia? Milo Ventimiglia portrays Christian music singer-songwriter Tim Timmons in I Can Only Imagine 2. The actor calls Timmons, who was diagnosed with a terminal cancer in 2001, a loving human being. In I Can Only Imagine 2, now in theaters, Milo Ventimiglia plays Tim Timmons, a contemporary Christian singer/songwriter whose life story helped spur the sequel to the 2018 faith-based film. In 2021, Tillmans was given 5 years to live after a terminal cancer diagnosis. More than 2 decades later, the artist is alive and calls Ventimiglia's portrayal of him in the movie The Honor of a Lifetime. Quote, he is able to hold grief and gratitude in the same regard, Ventimiglia said. She tells USA Today of Timmons, and my job is to honor this real-life human being, so he says honor by the way of me, but really the honor is mine to represent him wholly. The This Is Us star has learned firsthand about grief and gratitude over the past year. In January of 2025, his family lost their Malibu home in the California wildfires. Weeks later, he and his wife, Jara Mariano, welcomed a baby girl, and then Ventimiglia packed up a truck and trailer with his family, their 100-pound dog, Duke, included, and drove cross-country to Nashville to begin filming Imagine 2. The film's production company, Kingdom Come, gave Ventimiglia the option to back out of the project. He decided to stay on. Quote, we found it very healing as a process to be in Nashville, the actor says, praising the people he met through the film and in the neighborhood they lived in. Quote, you lose your house, your daughter's born, and it's those two things that are completely opposite happening in the same time. It was running parallel with what Tim was talking about through the course of the movie. In 2001, Timmons experienced similar highs and lows. Amid his cancer diagnosis, he was expecting a child with his wife, Hillary Timmons. Also was slated to open for the band Mercy Me on tour. It was Mercy Me's song, I Can Only Imagine, the best-selling Christian music single of all time, that inspired the first film. The project and Timmons' faith continue to resonate with Ventimiglia, even though the actor is not Christian. Ventimiglia says his practice isn't super common. It's a little more Eastern mysticism. And he goes on, quote, I'd read the Bible out of curiosity, Ventimiglia says, having a faith that can bring people together in a community and give you the strength to move forward, no matter what you call it. I think it's important, and as long as that's what you believe, don't impose on anybody else. Ventimiglia reveals what he lost in fire that his wife kicks me for. Ventimiglia recalls days on the set when in between he takes trying to help rebuild his family's life. The actor remembers trying to attain, quote, the basic necessities of life, unquote, while also searching for a new home and dealing with insurance claims. His family eventually found a new home in Los Angeles, but they spent much of the past year on the road, driving that truck and trailer from coast to coast. His work has taken him to Toronto, New York, and Vancouver, and no one is left behind, including Duke, the dog. The road trip crew is set to expand soon. Ventimiglia and his wife will welcome a second child this year. In my fire, I lost 20 years of film negatives that I never showed anyone, a body of work that as a photographer I never put out. Ventimiglia reveals this and other things, and my wife kind of kicks me for it. She's like, hey, you got to start doing something with these photos. You take all the time because they are meaningful. And the last paragraph, a quote, it's a good reminder of, we kind of only have the moment right now to do something. So be present, share, be good to one another, and hopefully it'll come back at you. Whoever Ventimiglia is, he's got a healthy outlook on life.
So, here's a music review. Megan Moroney is feeling in the pink, floating on cloud 9. Dateline Nashville. Megan Moroney sits on a leopard shades on a bubblegum pink house. The sunlight from the window pours onto her shoulders. Breakup sucks, she said. It's going to break my heart for at least 5 business days. I'm going to move on and be fine. Her pink top, pink skirt, and pink heels fit nicely in the house of Adora in East Nashville, serving as a visual appetizer for her cotton candy destination, Cloud 9, her 3rd album, out now. The inspiration? What happens when dreams come true? What happens when a meteoric rise to stardom propels a singer farther than a metaphorical Cloud 9? Moroney has a sold-out arena tour. He's a mainstay at CMA Fest and the CMA Awards. She's on a trajectory to thinner air. In the midst of releasing her 3rd album, she looks back at her path, and it's a long way down, down to Cloud 9. I had the title Cloud 9 in my note app for the very long time, she explained. I didn't know what I would ever do with it. Then I just started feeling extremely happy in life. I was so happy I thought it would be a really cool concept to write a song that was like, I'm above Cloud 9. The songs didn't just give the album its name, it reoriented the entire project. Before the track existed, Moroney already was mapping out her 3rd album with precision. In her head, it was MM3, Clean Clever, track 2, titled Medicine, was poised to be the centerpiece. Oh, you gave your number to an LA blonde? Well, I gave a quarterback mine, she sings before the chorus line says it all. How'd you like the taste of your own medicine? I wrote Medicine. I was like, this is it, Mooney said. Medicine, Megan Moroney, MM3, genius. Shortly after she wrote Cloud 9, everything tinted pink. 9 is Maury's number, maybe because she was born on October 9th. In May, the Libra will embark on a tour spanning from Columbus, Ohio to Belfast, Ireland, hitting American and Eastern stops in between. Her stage will curve in a 9, and you can bet she'll march her white boots along every square inch. I didn't know where the world was going to take me, she said, but when I wrote Cloud 9, everything just made sense. In 2019, Moroney's sorority Kappa Delta held a philanthropic concert at the University of Georgia. Organizers spent the entire budget for John Langston to perform and left no room to pay an opener. Moroney, who sang covers, grabbed her guitar, riled up the crowd. Singer Chase Rice happened to be among the sea of students. Told her if she could write an original song, she could open for him. She did it. What if I hadn't chosen Kappa Delta, she said. What if I had gone to a different school? So many things had to align. What if I would have followed my high school boyfriend to Kennesaw State instead of going to UGA? What it wouldn't have been in a sorority there. You know what I mean? It's so crazy how many things have to align. 9 Cloud opens with an effervescent title track followed by the sassy bite of Medicine, then the upbeat first single 6 months later about an ex with a labor's remorse calling far too late. Moroney pokes fun at a boy who ghosted her and stupid, because surely a guy wouldn't be that stupid, right? Mm. By the 5th song, the album turns melancholic. Gray clouds float in, leaving the listeners to ask if the singer once wrote, "Am I okay?" Is okay. Verse can make a mockingbird forget they're born to sing. Lies can break a fragile heart, and doubt can crush your dreams, she sings. But honey, take it from me, the world is hard on beautiful things. I write these songs and wear my heart on my sleeve for everyone to hear, Moroney said. I hope that my lyrics and my songs make people feel less alone, and I hope that they find their own stories in my story. That approach is why her emo cowgirls don't just scream and sing her lyrics, they feel seen. From track 5 in her album reads like a sequined diary. Wedding Dress is a fan favorite written years ago by younger Maroney, who couldn't see the end of her heartache. She quoted because her followers implored her to. There's pain in her songwriting. There's also perspective. When it comes to her searing ballad, Who Hurt You? She doesn't directly answer the question with a name, but says, I've seen everything I need to say in that song. Nearly every Maroney song wrote during the period made the album, compared with earlier projects where dozens were left on the cutting room floor. There's 3 songs that I wrote during this time that didn't make it, she said. It's been a project to learn more about myself as a songwriter. I don't do well with let's just write it and finish, even if it's not good. I hate doing that. I don't try to force songwriting. That's why Cloud 9 resonates beyond a bubblegum glossy surface. Beneath the varnish is an artist who understands contradiction, confidence and doubt, joy and grief, ambition and gratitude. But even for the self-assured musician, imposter syndrome finds a way to sometimes sneak in. I have a song with Ed Sheeran and Casey Musgrave, she said. One of my first covers I posted on Instagram was an Ed Sheeran song, and collaborating with him was beyond my wildest dreams. Like, if you would have told me that would happen, I would have been like you're being insane, you need to stop talking. Ronnie remembers being a teen waiting outside Musgrave's bus on a tour stop, sitting on the concrete all day for a moment to say hi to the high horse singer. How'd you go from that to having a song with her, she said. In my head, it's really hard to process. I haven't been doing this long. It's just jarring. And yet, between disbelief, confidence, and songwriting has taken hold. Truly love every single song on this album so much, she said. Feel in the past it's been hard to be proud of myself. I feel very proud of this album and myself, which is a new feeling. At the end of the hour-long conversation and photo shoot, Maroney leans back into the leopard chase, sunlight still tracing her outline. The sun wraps around her pink top, pink shirt, and pink makeup. For Maroney, pink represents her own bold strength. There's a softness to pink that comes with confidence, she said, when you know nothing's at the end of the world because you've got it. For her, Cloud 9 isn't the summits. It's a view below, proof of how far she's climbed and how much higher she's willing to go.
Do you remember in ancient times a character named Thor? A muscle-bound guy walking around with a club or an axe. But this next article is about a book writer. It says Thor embraces the art and business of writing novels, and there's a picture of him, very much modernly dressed. Brad Thor is known for the best-selling Scott Harvath series of geopolitical thrillers. Cold Zero is his first co-written novel and a rare Sunderland. Most writers won't touch reader reviews with a 10-foot pole. For political thriller writer Brad Thor is a virtual suggestion box. He's the author of more than 24 suspense novels, most globe-trotting and many with patriotic stars and stripes adorning the cover. His Scott Harvath series, in which all but 2 of his books belong, has been tapped for adaptation. He has a pack of loyal fans who regularly lob him with one criticism: write faster. You know him at all? Have you read it? No?
Oh yeah, Brad Thor.
Yeah.
He's my next book to read.
Oh,
Starting Tuesday, I start recording it.
Hey, well, that's serendipity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, he listens. While he says he has a great relationship with Simon & Schuster, he feels more beholden to the readers than his publishers. He takes their complaints and suggestions seriously. Quote, sometimes I roll my own eyes when I say I'm an artist. It is literature. It's an art. Writing books is an art, but I'm a small business person, and the readers are my customers. He tells USA Today that it's a business where I want the product to keep getting better. I see that in my reviews, where reviewers say it's incredible. The guy's over 2 decades in, and his books are just getting better and better. So that's my goal. I'm never going to phone it in. Even though he was cranking out a book a year, He wanted to give the readers more. That's why he wrote a novel for the first time, teaming up with fellow thriller Ward Larson for Cold Zero, out now from Simon & Schuster. Thor wants to surprise his well-fed readers. Thor started writing books after his wife asked him on his honeymoon what he would regret not having done on his deathbed. Publishing a book was his answer. On the same trip, he shared a Kismet overnight train ride with a sales rep from Simon & Schuster. Through her, he met Emily Bessler, who has published him for more than 20 years. Geopolitics and spy thrillers were an obvious route. He had experience producing a national public TV series, Traveling Light, where he caught the adventure bug. He grew up reading The Hardy Boys and sneaking adult espionage readers thrillers by Frederick Forsyth and John DeCare from his parents' porch lending library. I was trying to figure out what I could do that's really special, and I came up with, nobody knows this yet because they haven't read the book, but I'm bringing a character back from the very beginning of my career that nobody has seen in over 20 years, Thor says. Oh. His obsession with quality is part of the reason it's taken him so long to decide to co-write, a method many of his prolific author friends already have adopted. He was worried he wouldn't deliver work he was proud of. He wanted to do it only if you couldn't tell the difference between that writing and one of his solo adventures. You can go out and make another $25-30 if you're buying a hand cover to buy some more books. But what you'll never get back is the time that you trust me with, where you sit down with a book, Thor says, so I owe it to my readers to give them the best white-knuckle, edge-of-their-seat thrill ride, the best book. Do you have another one, or you want to?
Oh, I got another.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, this one has more, but why don't you go with it? So,
Okay.
You know him too. Okay.
This is a book review. Him tells another view of mass rape trial. Wow. About a year after a mass rape trial that captured global attention and galvanized a feminist movement in France, Giselle Picot is stepping back into the public spotlight with the release of her deeply vulnerable memoir. A hymn to life, Shame Has to Change Sides. 73-year-old Giselle Picot recounts her years-long ordeal, discovering that her then-husband, Dominique Pellicot, had repeatedly drugged her and brought dozens of strangers to their home to rape her, and later seeking justice in a French court. The deliberate and violent nature of the crime and the range of perpetrators involved that shocked the nation when the case first became public in 2021 on the heels of France's hashtag MeToo movement, hashtag Balance Ton Pork, which roughly translates to expose your pig, among a reckoning over attitudes toward incest and child abuse. Giselle Picot's decision to open the trial to the public 2024 rather than remain anonymous, as French law allows in sexual abuse cases, thrust the now 73-year-old retiree into the spotlight and turned her into a global feminist icon. She recounts this journey, including the harrowing discovery of her now ex-husband's years of deceit and abuse, in a 250-page book. It was written alongside ghostwriter Judith Perignon, translated in English by Natasha Lehrer and Ruth Diver, and published by Penguin Press. It's available on bookshelves February 17th. So that's on the bookshelves now. The book's subtitle, Shame Has to Change Sides, was a slogan used by many of Giselle Picot's supporters and during demonstrations around the time of the trial, advocating for a shift in how the judicial system defines sexual violence and consent. It was also a rallying cry for Giselle, who recalled the phrase when deciding to open up the trial to the public. Everyone needs to see the faces of the 51 rapists, she read. They should be the ones to hang their heads in shame, not me. Giselle Picot begins her story with a 2020 phone call from local police that would end up changing her life and that of her family forever. Her husband, Dominique Pellico, now 73, been arrested for filming up women's skirts at a grocery store. When investigators seized his computer, phones, and other devices, they found roughly 300 photos and videos documenting Giselle Picot's abuse at the hands of dozens of men. She does not shy away from recounting the brutal details of what the assailants did to her emotionally and physically, or the years of internal struggle she endured to make sense of how her life partner of 5 decades could have subjected her to such unspeakable betrayal and sexual violence. In that sense, large sections of the book read more like a psychological horror than a memoir. Her impression of her life and marriage, which she had for years considered quiet and happy, painfully and abruptly unraveled. During that first sit-down with police in 2020, one official asked her to describe her husband's character. "He's kind, attentive," she recalls saying. "He's a lovely guy. That's why we're still together." After a lengthy trial, 51 men were convicted in 2024 of raping and attempting to rape Pellico, including her husband, who drugged her and arranged the abuse over many years. Dominique Pellico was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The 50 men he invited to abuse his wife were sentenced to 3 to 15 years. 2 were convicted of attempted rape and 2 of sexual assault. The remainder were convicted of rape. Pellico admits in the book that she expects to spend the rest of her life puzzling through her memories of her life with her ex-husband and abuser, try to salvage a few good ones, but she writes that she refuses to be overcome by hatred or to be seen as a victim. Her interrogations are often deeply introspective. The book is interspersed with chapters recounting her childhood and familial tragedies, how she met Dominique, their financial struggles and marital woes, and her career work for France's electricity supplier. It's also told from the vantage point of a woman trying to make sense of her life in the face of devastation, sometimes grasping for signs that only hindsight can uncover. Beer that turned green, possibly a chemical reaction with the drugs Dominique Picot had been slipping into her drinks, and food to render her unconscious for the rapes. Unexplained stains on their new pair of trousers. Most disturbingly, a year of severe health problems and memory loss that convinced her she would die, as her mother had, of a brain tumor. Pellico is an unexpected feminist hero who, by her accounts, knew about the feminist movement that unfolded during her life, but saw herself as removed from them. She now embraces her newfound mantle as a symbol of current feminist wave. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for the 23rd day of February. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print